In the shadow of an ancient city lived a man named Kofi and his wife Ada. They had been married for 15 years, during which time Ada bore 3 sons, Ibo, Kwame, and Kwesi. Kofi's pride in his sons knew no bounds, but his heart harbored a secret longing for a daughter. As the years passed, Ada became pregnant again, and the whisper of a daughter's arrival filled Kofi with a mixture of anticipation and dread. When the midwife announced the birth of another boy, Kofi's demeanor changed like the night. He masked his disappointment in front of his friends and family, but inside, his world turned cold. As the new son, Kojo, grew, Kofi's resentment boiled over. Ada noticed the change but remained silent, understanding all too well the unspoken weight of her husband's longing. Kofi's interactions with Kojo were distant and terse, unlike the warmth he showed his older sons. One night, under a crescent moon, Ada overheard Kofi talking to a mysterious figure outside their modest home. His voice was strained, and shadows seemed to dance menacingly around him. Ada strained to catch his words, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and curiosity. "I need a way out," Kofi whispered desperately. "I cannot bear the sight of another son when my heart aches for a daughter." The figure, a well-known shaman in their village, answered in a gravelly voice. "There is a way, but the path is filled with shadows deeper than those cast by the moon. You must be willing to sacrifice what you hold dear." Without a moment's hesitation, Kofi agreed, desperate to change his fate. In the weeks that followed, the household sank deeper into a chilling silence. Kofi's visits to the shaman became more frequent, and with each visit, he became more withdrawn. Then tragedy struck. Kojo fell seriously ill under mysterious circumstances. Despite Ada's best efforts, the boy's health rapidly deteriorated. Rumors swirled through the village that Kofi had made an unholy pact to trade his son's health for the chance to have a daughter. One stormy night, as thunder rolled across the sky, Kojo's breathing grew faint. Ada, gripped by despair, confronted Kofi with tears streaming down her face. "What have you done to our son?" she demanded, her voice cracking with grief. Kofi's face was a mask of anguish. "I did it for us, for a daughter to complete our family," he confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. Ada recoiled in horror, realizing the depth of her husband's betrayal. Kojo died that night, his small chest rising and falling one last time as his spirit slipped away. The next morning, the village awoke to the news of Kojo's death and Kofi's dark deal. Outraged and heartbroken, the community shunned the family. Kofi, overwhelmed with guilt and grief, could not bear the weight of his actions. He left under cover of darkness, never to return. Left alone with her grief and her sons, Ada mourned not only Kojo, but the man Kofi had once been. Her home, once filled with the laughter of her children, now echoed with the ghostly whispers of loss and regret. Years later, as Ada sat by the fire, her surviving sons around her, she told them the story of their father's search for a daughter and the price of his desires. It was a grim lesson in the dangers of letting desire cloud one's judgment, and a stark reminder of the shadows that lurk when one tries to change fate. As Ada and her sons healed from the scars of Kofi's betrayal, life in the village slowly returned to a semblance of normalcy. Ada found solace in her garden, tending to her herbs and flowers with the care she had once poured into her family. Ibo, Kwame, and Kwesi grew into young men, their faces bearing traces of their father's features, but their eyes carrying the weight of his absence. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with streaks of orange and purple, a stranger approached their home. He was a young man, his features strikingly similar to Kojo's, stirring a mixture of hope and fear in Ada's heart. The stranger introduced himself as Yar, claiming to be a distant relative on a journey to find his family's roots. Ada welcomed Yar with cautious hospitality, sensing a mysterious aura around him that reminded her of Kofi. As the days turned into weeks, Yor proved to be a helping hand in the household and a gentle soul, bringing a new light into their lives that had been dim since Kojo's death. One day, while helping Ada in the garden, Yor paused, his hands deep in the earth, and turned to Ada with a solemn gaze. "I have something to confess," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "I am not who I said I was. I am your son, Kojo." Ada's tools fell to the floor as she stared at Yor in disbelief. "But how is that possible?" she gasped. her heart racing with a mixture of joy and confusion. Yor explained that the night Kofi had sought the shaman's help, he had indeed made a pact, but not for Kojo's life. Instead, Kofi had asked for Kojo's spirit to be bound to the earth so that he could return one day, hoping to right his wrongs. The shaman, moved by Kofi's eventual remorse, had granted this request on one condition, that Kojo return with no memory of his past, to be awakened only by the true bond of his family. As Yor recounted his journey, fragmented memories of his past life began to resurface, guided by the familiar sights and smells of Ada's home and the love that emanated from it. Ada, tears streaming down her face, embraced Yor, feeling the return of a son she thought lost forever. In the weeks that followed, the village learned of Yor's true identity and marveled at the story of redemption and mystical reunion. Ada's house became a place of pilgrimage, a symbol of the enduring strength of family ties and the possibility of forgiveness. Ebo, Kwame, and Kwesi welcomed Yor back into their lives, their brotherhood rekindled and strengthened by the trials they had endured. Together, they rebuilt the foundations of their home, infusing it with new hope and joy. As the years passed, Ada often sat under the old baobab tree, her grandchildren playing around her, including Yor, and told stories of their grandfather Kofi, the shaman's pact, and the unbreakable bonds of family. Through her stories, she taught lessons of caution against the darkness of unchecked desire, and the light found in forgiveness and second chances. The years continued to flow like the rivers around her village, each carrying the stories of the past into the sands of the present. Yor, once a lost son, returned, took on his role within the family and community with a vigor that matched the brightness of his second chance at life. He married a kind-hearted woman from a neighboring village, and together they had 2 daughters, whom Ada cherished as the granddaughters she never thought she'd have. Ada, now an elder revered by all, spent her days weaving stories and wisdom into the fabric of village life. Her home, always open, became a sanctuary for those seeking advice or simply the warmth of a shared fire. The story of Kofi's quest and its consequences became a parable about the dangers of selfish desires and the redemptive power of love and acceptance. As her granddaughters, Amma and Abina, grew up, they became the bearers of their grandmother's legacy. They listened wide-eyed as Ada told the stories of their Uncle Kojo's mysterious journey between life and spirit, the magic that allowed him to return, and the deep scars left by their grandfather Kofi's choices. One evening, as the sun cast long shadows over the village, Ada gathered her family around the baobab tree. Her voice, though aged, still held the village spellbound. She spoke of a new chapter, one not burdened by the past, but enlightened by it. Each of you carries the strength of forgiveness and the power to change history, Ada told them, her eyes reflecting the firelight. We must use our lives to sow seeds of love and compassion, not only within our walls, but beyond them. Inspired by Ada's words, Yor and his family began an annual festival to celebrate the renewal that forgiveness can bring. Villagers from far and wide gathered to share stories of redemption and unity. It was a celebration marked by lively dancing, singing, and the sharing of colourful garlands made from the flowers Ada loved to grow. As Ada's time on Earth drew to a close, she felt a profound peace, knowing that she had helped weave a tapestry of healing and hope that would outlive her. On a cool night, under the same stars that had witnessed the darkest and brightest moments of her family's history, Ada passed away surrounded by her loving family. Her legacy, however, continued to flourish. Amma and Abena, inspired by their grandmother, pursued paths that would use their stories to promote understanding and empathy. Amma became a storyteller, traveling beyond the village to share her family's history, while Abena focused on the healing arts, combining her grandmother's herbal knowledge with the wisdom of the baobab tree. Each year at the festival, Yor told Ada's story, adding layers as the family grew and learned from each other. It wasn't just a story of her lineage anymore. It became a story of community growth, a reminder that every heart and every family is capable of change. This is the end of our story. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the videos for the continuation of such stories. Don't forget to leave your comments in the comments section. This is important for us. Stay with love.